Okay, I started talking over there without my mic on, so now you might have you may have seen my lips move and no sound. Now you know why. So we've corrected that situation, and now we can properly begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. It sounds like we're getting a little bit into the Purim spirit before Purim. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We're holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel on Mir Hashem. Today we will be learning Daf Kuf Amid Beis. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today the very last line, and actually the very last word in the Shulchan Aruch on Kuf Amid Aleph Siman Shin Vav Sif Yud Daled. Our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kabeis Yisrael Hanasuna Batzaru Bashivya Ha'imdim Bein Bayam Ubein Bayabasha Hamakim Yerachem Aleihem V'Yitzim Yitzar Lirvaka Me'afelu La'ira Umishibed L'Geula Hashtabagala Uvizman Kariv V'Naimar Amen. Our learning should be a schus Refuah Shalema from Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel, Yitzchak ben Tzion ben Dusha, Rivka bas Shiraleah, Chava Hadassah bas Serel. They should have a Refuah Shalema b'Sark Shar Chayla Yisrael. Our learning should be a schos for Yonason ben Michal, Yoel ben Michal, together with all of our other brothers and sisters that find themselves in harm's way. The Rebbeinu Shalom should watch over them. Okay. Okay, so moving on to Sif Yud Daled. An interesting case. It's unfortunately a very sad case that the Mechaber has to discuss over the course of the generations. Unfortunately, since the time of the Golus, this is something that happened all too often, and therefore it merited its own Sif Katan in Shulchan Aruch. Says the Mechaber, Mi shesholchulai. You have somebody who was sent a message. What was the message? Shahitziu bitoi mi beisai b'Shabbos, that his daughter was never kidnapped from his home on Shabbos, loitzia mi klal Yisrael, with the intent of, I guess you would say, forcibly converting her, with the intent of shmatting her up. So this was, a girl was taken from a home and brought, let's say, to a convent where they're going to try and convert her. And he receives this news on Shabbos. Now, it's important to note over here that in this case, the girl was kidnapped for a very specific reason. We don't seem to be afraid over here that her life is in danger. She was kidnapped in order to be taken, let's say, to a convent, and they're going to try over time to convert her. But they're not threatening her life. She's not in mortal danger. So this is not a case of pekuach nefesh. Says the Mechaber, mitzvah losam laderech pa'amav lihishtadel pahatzalasa. It is a mitzvah for the father to get his feet on the road and do whatever he can to go ahead and save her. Not only that, says the Mechaber, v'yotzei afilu chutz l'shalosh parsois. If he needs to travel, not only is he allowed to travel out of the Tchum D'Rabbanan, he's even allowed to travel a distance more than 3 parsa out of the town, which is the Tchum Yud Beis Mill that we've spoken of several times already, which many Rishonim say is an Isser Daraisa. And indeed, the Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us that in such a case, the father and anyone else is permitted to be over any Isser Daraisa in order to go and get this child back and to save her from this fate of perhaps being converted. V'iloi boy, and if the father says, I don't want to do this, I don't want to go on Shabbos, based in Geyzerin alav, Bezdin would be geyser on him. They would decree on him, get up and go. V'ayin l'kamon simin shun chav ches sif yud. Okay, now, this is one of those interesting topics where, you hear this halacha and you might be nodding to yourself and saying, well, of course, this girl is in horrific danger. She was taken to a convent. They're going to try to shmat her up. They're going to try to, of course, we have to do whatever we can. But we're dealing with halacha here. So we've got to do the math. If it's mutter to be mechal Shabbos, we have to know precisely why it's mutter to be mechal Shabbos. Again, we're not talking about a case of pekuach nefesh here. This is not a case where she was kidnapped by marauders and we have no idea what they're going to do to her. That's not the case. She's going to be given a nice clean room and maybe a nice comfortable bed. But they're going to try to convert her. So what exactly is the heter that allows for pikuach nefesh over here? We need to understand this. So let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah is Katan Nun Vav. Shoitzioi Bitoi, they took his daughter out of his home. First of all, points out the Mishnah Berurah, Urcha de Milsa Nokat. When the Mechaber gives the case that the father of the girl received the news, and now it's a mutter for the father of the girl to go do these things, it's only Urcha de Milsa Nokat. The Mechaber is only giving you over the case in what would seem to be the typical case. V'hu adin acher rashoy l'chal Shabbos k'dei la'atzila meha iser hagadol. This halacha applies to anybody, right? You could get together chaverim and shamrim and hatzala and everybody else, and they could also go be mechal Shabbos to go save this girl. It's not a halacha that's dafka to the father. That's point number one. Point number two. The chol zeh mayri shahitziyua enam Yehudim mi beisai ba'oinis. This halacha is true when the girl was taken against her will. That's why we're allowing him to get on the road and go be over Isurim, even Isurei Daraisa, to go save her. Why? The Kaimalon, because we paskin, im enoi pesheya, if somebody is put into a position where he is going to have to be over an Isser, but he was put into this position against his will. He wasn't negligent. Chayiv lasois isura zuta, then you are obligated to transgress a more minor prohibition, kedei shelo yaseh chaveroi isura rabba, in order to prevent your chaver from having to transgress a major prohibition. I will get to this more in a moment. Avalim pasha. But let's say this girl was not kidnapped. Let's say this girl put herself in the position where this could very well happen. She was told, stay away from that group of people over there. There are these missionaries hanging around town looking to chop a girl and take her away. And she decided, you know what, maybe I'll go hang out with them. So she was pesheya, and then she was taken. Then ein loy la'avia l'chal Shabbos avura. Then the father cannot go ahead and be B'chal Shabbos on behalf of the daughter. De'ein oimrim loy la'adam chatei, or it might be more properly chato, kedei sheyiska chavercha. We don't tell somebody, go ahead and transgress a prohibition, go ahead and do a chait in order to prevent your friend from doing a chait. So the concept that we're dealing with over here is, again, we have a girl who's not in mortal danger. She might not be in physical danger at all. The danger that she's in is a ruchniistic danger. The danger that she's in is that they might convert her. Who knows what they might have her do? They very well might have her be B'chal Shabbos. They might even have her be Oived Avodah Zarah. So the danger, the active danger that she's in at this moment is a danger of being forced to transgress prohibitions. Now the question is, all right, could we be matir somebody else to transgress a prohibition, to be Mechal Shabbos, in order to go save this girl from going ahead and transgressing a prohibition? That's the case that we're dealing with over here. And what the Mishnah Berurah is telling us is, well, it depends. What exactly is the story with this girl? If she was taken forcibly, so then we paskin that yes, if somebody is put into a position against his will or ba'onis, where he might have to transgress a prohibition, then the halacha is that you are allowed to transgress a more minor prohibition in order to prevent him from transgressing a major prohibition. But if the person was pesheya, if the person put himself into that position, then you have no achrayus to him. Then we don't let you transgress a prohibition to save him from a prohibition. The very classic case where this is discussed in the Gemara is something called Ridias Hapas. 1 second. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nu b'dvarim. Ridias hapas is the act of removing bread from a baking oven. So back in the day, in the time of the Gemara, generally speaking, the way they baked loaves of bread was they took the dough and they stuck it to the side of the oven. When the dough was baked, there was a special tool, a special kind of implement, a shovel or something, that was used to detach the bread from the wall of the oven and scoop it out. Now the Gemara says that Ridias hapas chochma ve'ena malacha. It's not a malacha. You're not going to be over one of the lamites malachas by performing Ridias hapas. Now it could be, if you're not careful, you might stoke the coals, but just removing the bread from the oven is not one of the lamites malachas. That's not the malacha of baking. Baking is when you put the dough into the oven, not when you take it out of the oven. So the Gemara says Ridias hapas chochma ve'ena malacha. It's a skill. You have to know how to do it. Go to the matzah bakery, watch how they take the matzahs out of the oven. Not any yukel could go ahead and do it. It takes practice and experience. Chachma ve'ena malacha. Therefore, the Gemara comes out that Ridias hapas is an issa d'Rabbanan. It's not an issa d'Oraisa. Now, let's say somebody went on Shabbos and put dough into the oven on Shabbos. Now, the act of putting dough into the oven on Shabbos, you're going to tell me it's an act of baking. But the truth is, you're not over the Issa Daraisa of baking on Shabbos the moment you put the dough into the oven. Because you're not over the Isser until the dough becomes at least minimally baked. If you would put the dough in the oven and then have charota and right away pull it out of the oven, then you would never be over the Issa Daraisa of afiyah, of baking. So now comes a very interesting shaila. Let's say somebody put dough into the oven on Shabbos. If the dough remains there, ultimately he's going to be over in Issa Daraisa. But if you go ahead and you take the shovel and you scoop the dough out of the oven, then you're going to be over in Issa D'Rabbanan, but you're going to save him from being over in Issa Daraisa. So the Gemara has this open question. The Gemara wants to know, what's the halacha? Should you go ahead and be over on Issa D'Rabbanan to save this fellow from being over in Issa Daraisa, or not? Now this is a complex sugya. And the truth is that different Gemaras seem to have a mashmois in different directions. Whether it's mutter to transgress a minor prohibition in the face of somebody else transgressing a major prohibition or not, in different places we seem to come out different ways. And therefore, because of this, there's a whole machlokes rishonim, what the halacha actually is. You know, what case is the Gemara talking about when the Gemara says you could? What case is the Gemara talking about when the Gemara says you can't? The way we come out is that it depends on the person, on what happened. How did this person come into a position where he's going to be over an Isser? If he came into this position through an Einus, it was inadvertent, it was against his will, then you're allowed to be over an Isura Zuta. You're allowed to be over a more minor prohibition in order to save him from the more major prohibition. But if he came into this position through his own negligence, through a pshia, then you're not allowed to be over even a small isser in order to save him from even a big isser. Why? Because he shouldn't have done what he did. Once he was pshia the way he was, you don't have a chrayas to him. We're not going to tell you that you should be over an isser in order to save him, even if you're going to be over a small isser. Now that's what the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here. The Mishnah Berurah is telling us over here, look, we're only going to give you this heter. We're only going to give the father or anybody else a heter to go be Mechal Shabbos if this girl was taken ba'onis. If she was taken ba'onis, then yes, then you could go ahead and be over in Isura Zuta and prevent her from being over in Isura Rabbah. Now, over here, why is it that your Isser is an Isura Zuta and her Isser is an Isura Rabbah? So what we're going to see in the Mishnah Berurah later is very simple math. The math is, you only have to be Mechal Shabbos right now. Maybe once, or maybe a few times, depending on exactly it is what you need to do in order to go save her. But if you don't save her, she might remain over there for who knows how long. Maybe she'll end up being Mechal 100 Shabbos. Or maybe Nebuch, she'll get caught up over there, she'll be stuck there. Maybe she'll be over Isurei Daraisa for the rest of her life. So therefore we say, if she was taken Ba'onis, you could be over an Isura Zuta, you could be Mechal Shabbos once or twice or 3 times in order to prevent her from being Mechal Shabbos over and over and over again. But if she was Paisheya, then you don't have a heter. Now again, remember, we're talking about where there's no physical or for sure mortal danger over here to the girl. The girl, the only danger that she's in is this ruchniistic danger, so to speak, that they might go ahead and convert her. Continues the Mishnah Berurah, V'dafka be'isur daraisa. However, this calculation only holds true when it comes to Isurei Daraisa. Aval be'isur darabanan, but when it comes to transgressing an Isur darabanan, das ha'el yerabba diyesh lahakel la'avor kedei lahatzila. To be over Isurei darabanan to save her, that you could certainly do. Ois Katan on Zion. The Mechaber said you could go out of Shalosh Parsa'os. Hainu. After Yesh Bazeh Isur Daraisa Le'eza Paiskim, even though many Paiskim hold that the Tchum of 3 Parsa, aka Yud Beis Mil, is an Isur Daraisa, still you're allowed to be over Isurei Daraisa to save the girl. V'hu adin im yitztarech lechal Shabbos al yidei zeh be'ezeh b'lamates malachas gam ken shaper dami. The same halacha holds true. Whatever Isurei Daraisa you have to be over, you're allowed to be over Isurei Daraisa to save this girl. And here is where the Mishnah Berurah explains the math. Tekasher tamir es ados ligamri, because if chas v'chalila they succeed in converting this girl, tekal Shabbos v'taver avedis gilulim kol yameh. This girl could end up being Mechal Shabbos. She could even end up chas v'chalila being over Avodah Zarah for the rest of her life. If you have to be Mechal Shabbos once, or twice, or 3 times, depending on what it is that you're doing, Nikra Isura Zuta neged zeh, your Isur is called an Isura Zuta. It's considered that you're transgressing a more minor prohibition in order to save her from being over in Isura Zuta. Kosev HaMagen Avram. The Magen Avram writes something. This is, when you first read this, you're taken aback. I'll tell you what Rav Moshe says afterwards. Kosev HaMagen Avram, the Magen Avram writes, Sarich Iyun, we need to look into this more deeply. Em habas ketana, if we're talking about a minor girl, v'roitzim lo yitzia miklal Yisrael, and again, they took her in order to convert her. Em yasa agadol chet b'shvila, are you allowed to be over an Isser in order to save her? Because again, strictly math. They take a girl who's a ketana, and they're going to have a ketana be over an Avera. Well, for you should be over an Isser, you're a gadol. You should be over an Isser in order to prevent them from making a ketana be over an Isser. Besdin is not instructed. It's not incumbent upon Besdin. It's not incumbent upon the tzibur to make sure that a katan or a ketana are not over Averis. So what right do you have to go be over Isurim in order to prevent a katan or a ketana from being over an Isser? Or maybe you say, Midi dahava a pikuach nefesh shebachalolin ala katan. If this would be a case of pikuach nefesh, you certainly would be Mechal Shabbos to save the katan. The Imrim. Now again, you think to yourself, do I even need anyone to explain this to me? I need someone to explain to me why you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos for a katan or a ketana? Isn't it obvious? Yes, you do need someone to explain it to you. Why? Because this is halacha, Rabbi Yisai. Halacha has rules. It's not just hergish. It's not just emotion. That, of course, yeah. No. If you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos because of Pekuach Nefesh, there are rules that govern it. So if the halacha is that you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos to save the life of a katan or a ketana, and yes, that is the halacha. But it's not just, of course, Rabbi Weiss, it's never pashut. We don't even talk about it. No, we have to explain why. So the Mishnah Berurah says, yes, by a katan or ketana, do'imrim chalil olav Shabbos echad, the math is, we allow you to go be Mechal Shabbos to save the life of a katan or a ketana because we figure You're going to be Mechal Shabbos once, Kedei Sheyishmar Shabbosais Harbe. And by saving the child will remain alive, and the child will grow up, and the child will, Mirz Hashem, keep Shabbos for the next 95 years. So, math. Yes, we're going to allow you to be Mechal Shabbos once in order to give this child the opportunity to grow up and have a lifetime of Shmir Shabbos. Hachinami Kain. The same math works over here. Yes, you're going to be Mechal Shabbos to prevent a katan or a ketana from doing Yisurim because of the same math. Even though we're talking about a katan or a ketana, and to stop the katan or the ketana from being over Yisurim right now doesn't have a very high priority because it's only a katan or a ketana. Yeah. But we want to make sure that it's not going to, and we want to make sure that this katan or ketana is given the ability to grow up and be a Shomer Torah mitzvahs for the rest of his life. We can't take a risk that they're going to convert this child and then there's going to be no life of Shmiras Torah mitzvahs. So it's the same math. Ubel Yerabba daita lahakal. The El Yerabba takes the kula position, which is yes, be Mechal Shabbos. The im lo yishtadel lahatzila tishar ken gam b'gadlusa. Because of this math. Because if you're not Mechal Shabbos for her, then who knows what's going to happen to her. For the rest of her life, she won't have the opportunity to be a Shemeres Torah u'mitzvahs. Oiskot Nunches. The Mechaber here, in the closing words of the Siman, told us, V'ayin lekamon Siman Shinchav Ches Sif Yud. Says the Mishnah Berurah Oiskot Nunches. Where is the Mechaber didn't send us there? The Ramah sent us there. Says the Mishnah Berurah, where's the Ramah sending us? What's in Siman Shin Chav Ches that we need to see? Says the Mishnah Berurah Bahagah. Take a look at the Ramah over there. The Isasham. And again, this is going to take you by surprise that we need to discuss this and explain it. The Misha Reitzim La'ansai Sheyavar Avera Gedola. Somebody was taken by Einam Yehudim. And you find out that they are trying to force this individual to be over a major Isser. How major? Even one of the Gimel Chamurais. They're trying to get this individual to be over Avodah Zarah. And I mean real Avodah Zarah, right? They want to turn him into, I don't know, a Buddhist. They want him to worship who knows what. But they want him to do genuine Avodah Zarah, something that you mechuyev to give up your life for. So they want to get this person to be over one of the Gimel Chamurais. So Misha Reitzim La'ansai, somebody who they want to force, Sheyavar Avera G'dayla, that they want to force him to be over an Avera G'dayla. And you have the ability, maybe, to go stop this. You have the ability to go save him. But in order to save him, you're going to have to be over Yisrei Daraisa. Says the Mishnah Berurah, and he brings this down from a Ramah, Ein mechalel alav Shabbos kidei lahatziloi. You can't be mechal Shabbos in order to save this individual. You hear? Now, right away, you're going to be stuck over here that there's a contradiction. The Ramah is telling us over there that they kidnapped somebody, and they're trying to force this person to be over an Avera G'dayla, and you are not allowed to be mechal Shabbos to go save this individual. Now, wait a second. Didn't we just finish saying over here that you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos because they took this girl and they're trying to convert this girl? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ve'ein stira lekan. There's no contradiction here. Why? The Hasa Mairi, over there we're talking about a case, Shereitzim la'ansai sheyavar avera pam achas. Over there, it's a one-off. They got hold of this guy. This is not a case where they kidnapped a girl and they want to put her in a convent and keep her in a convent for the rest of her life, and with the nuns, and turn her into an Oived Avodah Zarah. That's not the case. That's our case. But that's not the case in Shin Chav Ches. The case in Shin Chav Ches is a one-off. Some really bad eggs got hold of this person and kidnapped him or her, and now they're trying to force him to be Oived Avodah Zarah right now. And if he's Oived Avodah Zarah, they'll let him go. They had their kicks. They're doing it for their kicks right now. So that's the difference, says the Mishnah Berurah, between here and the Ramah in Shin Chav Ches. Over here, we're telling you, you could be Mechal Shabbos once or twice or three times in order to save the girl from a lifetime of Chil Shabbos and Chil Mitzvahs. Over here, it's a one-off. They're trying to force the guy right now to be Ovid Avodah Zarah. So no, you can't be Mechal Shabbos to go stop this. Ulahachi, and therefore, afilu imhi avera gedola. Even if we're talking about a real bona fide avera gedola, how gedola? Kigoin lavei avodas kilulim, like one of the gimel chamurais Avodah Zarah. Ein tzarich lechal Shabbos kedei lahatziloi. You don't, and the words are, you don't have to. Ein tzarich. You do not need to go be Mechal Shabbos to save this person. The Mechal Shabbos can't covet avodas kilulim. Because what's the trade-off? I don't understand. You should go be Mechal Shabbos, which we always say is Shokol Keneged Kol Tarakula. So if you're Mechal Shabbos, it's like being Ovid Avodah Zarah. So you should go do something that's equal to being Ovid Avodah Zarah, the reflexive postulate of equality, right? You should go ahead and do something that's the equivalent of being Ovid Avodah Zarah in order to prevent the Goyim from forcing this hapless individual from being Ovid Avodah Zarah. What's the math? So, I don't understand. So, fine. So, they're forcing him. So, he'll be Ovid Avodah Zarah. But you won't be Ovid Avodah Zarah. Not only that, if he's Ovid Avodah Zarah, he's going to do it against his will. He's going to do it under duress. If you go be Mechal Shabbos now, you're not doing it under duress. You're doing it, so to speak, willingly. You're doing it knowing what you're doing, making the choice to do it. So where's the math? How does the math dictate that you should go be Mechal Shabbos in order to save this fellow from being Avodah Zarah? The math doesn't work. So that's why the Ramah in Shin Chav Ches says, you know that they're trying to force some poor individual to be Ovid Avodah Zarah. No, you don't go be Mechal Shabbos in order to stop that from happening. Why? Because the math doesn't work out. Masha ein ken kan. But that's not a contradiction to what we're learning here, because here we're worried Shetishar Mumeres Usachal Shabbos Lo'ilam. In our case, we're worried that this poor girl is going to remain heretic for the rest of her life, and she's going to be Mechalel Shabbos for the rest of her life. Now, we have to hit the pause button here for a moment. Because again, what's the case that we're talking about in Shin Chav Ches? We're talking about they kidnapped somebody, or they're holding somebody, and they're trying to force him to be Ovid Avodah Zarah. Now, what happens when they try to force somebody to be Ovid Avodah Zarah? Avodah Zarah is one of the Gimel Chamuros. Avodah Zarah is Yeharek Val Yavar. Avodah Zarah is you're mechuyev to give up your life and not go ahead and be Ovid Avodah Zarah. So, isn't that Pikuach Nefesh? If you know that they're trying to force somebody to be Ovid Avodah Zarah, then forget the math of, well, why should you be Mechal Shabbos to stop him from being Ovid Avodah Zarah? Let him be Ovid Avodah Zarah. But wait a second. That poor guy who they're trying to force to be Ovid Avodah Zarah is mechuyev to give up his life. So he's going to insist, and he's going to dig in his heels, and he's going to say, no, I'm not being Ovid Avodah Zarah. Well, then they might kill him. Well, in that case, you have to go save him because it's Pekuach Nefesh. So Rav Moshe brings this up in the Igros Moshe. And he says that if there's even a suffix that this person might give up his life and that they might kill him, then indeed it's Pekuach Nefesh, and of course you have to go save him. So we have to be talking, this has to be talking about a case over here where, yeah, they're trying to force him to be Ovid Avodah Zarah, but there's no Pekuach Nefesh. Maybe they're not even threatening him with Misa. Maybe they're not threatening him to kill him. Maybe he's a pachton, he's a person who's very fearful, and maybe they're threatening to beat him up, but they're not going to kill him. They don't even have a suffix to kill him. They're not interested in murder. They're not interested in being held up on murder charges. They're going to give him a hard time. They might beat him up a little. They might intimidate him. So you're going to go be Mechal Shabbos in order to save him from being Ovid Avodah Zarah? No, you're not. So why is he being Ovid Avodah Zarah if they're not threatening to kill him? Listen, you never want to be put into that Nisayan, Rabbi Say, and you don't even want to think about it, about being put into that Nisayan. But over here, we're talking about a case where there's no Pekuach Nefesh involved. The only reason to go be Mechal Shabbos is to save him. That he might go ahead, he might be Ovid Avodah Zarah. That the math doesn't allow you to do. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter, closing off the Siman over here. Kosav Knesses Hagdola, the Laleches Chutz L'Tchum B'Shabbos. Another fascinating case. Kosav Knesses Hagdola. Knesses Hagdola writes, the Laleches Chutz L'Tchum B'Shabbos. To go out of the Tchum on Shabbos. Why? Linkaim Nikmas Aviv Meiroitzchim. In order to avenge, somebody wants to go out of the Tchum because Nebuch, this person's father, was murdered by Einam Yehudim. I mean, I'm assuming by Einam Yehudim. And he found out about it. And he knows where these people are. So he wants to go out of the Tchum to go to them for what? To avenge his father's death. Which I assume means he's got a loaded shotgun and he wants to go out of the Tchum, find the murderers, and he wants to put them in the ground. Right? He wants to avenge his father's murder. Mutter. So the Knesset Hagdola says, it's mutter. You're allowed to go out of the Tchum for that. Now, you're not allowed to kill the murderers on Shabbos because you're not allowed to kill. You're not allowed to kill anybody. Netilas Neshama is one of the Lamites Malachas. You're not allowed to kill somebody on Shabbos. So I guess that there's no question over here. The actual avenging of the murder of his father is not going to take place on Shabbos because you would not be allowed to kill the murderers on Shabbos. So maybe the only thing over here is the guy wants to go out of the Tchum because he knows where the murderers are, and if he doesn't go out of the Tchum now to go catch the murderers are going to get away. So he wants to go out of the Tchum on Shabbos in order to catch up with the murderers on Motzei Shabbos, to kill them on Motzei Shabbos. That's one thing, one point. The other point is, what is this inyan that he wants to go out of the Tchum on Shabbos, Linkaim Nikmas Aviv, and the Knesset Hagdola says it's mutter? Why? Why is it mutter? It sounds like a very nice thing. He wants to go avenge his father's murder, but you're allowed to go out of the Tchum for that? Why? What's the inyan? So I think what you have to say is, this is the inyan of a Goyal Adam. When we learn Masechtas Makos, there's a lot of fascinating sugyas about the Goyal Adam. We have a whole machlokes in the Gemara. We always learn about somebody killed somebody b'shoigeg, so the Goyal Adam is out to get him to go avenge the death of his loved one. The accidental murderer has to run to an Ir Miklat. If he doesn't, he's got to get to the Ir Miklat fast because the Goyal Adam might catch him and kill him. He can't leave the Ir Miklat. If he leaves the Ir Miklat, the Goyal Adam is allowed to kill him. Exactly when is the Goyal Adam allowed to kill him? That they have to take him to Beis Din. He has to be tried and convicted of killing somebody b'shoigi. Then the Goyal Adam is allowed to kill him, or maybe the Goyal Adam is allowed to kill him even before they get to Beis Din. Another sugya: is it a mitzvah on the Goyal Adam to kill him, or is it only he's allowed to kill him? So there's a lot of sugyas over here. But according to some shittas, there's pashut a mitzvah. And it's not only on somebody who kills b'shoigeg, it's certainly on somebody who kills b'mezid. So somebody was murdered b'mezid. The Goyal Adam, according to one shita, has a mitzvah to go kill the murderer. So that's what happened over here. Somebody's father was murdered. Now the son, the Goyal Adam, has a mitzvah, linkaim nikmas aviv, to go track down the murderer and kill him. So he wants to go out of the Tchum on Shabbos in order to facilitate his Kiyam HaMitzvahs. Okay, so now we can at least understand where the Knesset Hagdola is coming from. He's coming from the idea you're allowed to go out of the Tchum in order to be Mekayim a Mitzvah. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, V'tama alav HaMagid Avram, the Magid Avram reacts in wonderment to this. Usha'ari Achrayim, I think it's the Shagas Aryeh, Tahaloi Adif Bishar Tzarich Mitzvah, the Asa Leila Chutz L'Tchum Avura. Where are you coming from? We don't find anywhere that you're allowed to go out of the Tchum in order to facilitate the kiyum of a mitzvah. So why is this mitzvah any different? We're not going to get into it any more than that. So today was a really bit of a fascinating shir. Again, it's a nebach in the history of Klal Yisrael that we have to discuss, such things. But again, what we have to remember over here is that the basic topic was somebody was kidnapped. And again, they're not in physical or not in mortal danger. The danger over here is that they took her and they're going to try to convert her. That's the danger that we're talking about over here. That's the immediate danger that we're discussing, whether or not you're allowed to go be Mechal Shabbos in order to save this individual. Certainly, if there's even a suffix of pikuach nefesh, or there's a suffix that it might come to pikuach nefesh, maybe you don't know for sure who took the girl. Maybe the girl is missing, and you don't know. Maybe she was taken by real bad eggs. Maybe she isn't pikuach nefesh. Then of course you have to go be Michal Shabbos. I remember very vividly a case that occurred it's already many years ago, in the yeshiva community in Staten Island, where there was an elderly gentleman, a relative of somebody in the community, who was staying by his family, and he had advanced Alzheimer's, and he wandered off in the middle of the day. And we live very close to a highway, and this person was known that if he would wander away, he could walk onto the highway. So zicher a chash pikuach nefesh here. Also, an elderly gentleman like that wanders away. You don't know where he's going to end up. You don't know if he's going to fall. You don't know if he's going to wander into the woods. Is somebody going to find him? Is somebody not going to find him? Safek pikuach nefesh. I got into my car on Shabbos afternoon and went looking for him and found him. You want to know where he was? He was walking on the shoulder of the 440. So, yeah, he was definitely in danger. So even if there's a safek pikuach nefesh, we're not clearing over here a question of should you be Michal Shabbos in order to save somebody from a safek pikuach nefesh. All the math that we're doing over here is in balancing Isura Rabba, Isura Zuta. What are your obligations to do in order to prevent somebody from being over Isurim? Okay, thank you so much for joining me for Liman HaTorah, the source of Liman HaTorah, Shiva Began against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshua's Refuah's Parnasa Jeduchim to all those in need. We should be zeichet to see the B'Yeskel Tzedek B'Mher V'Yameinu Amen. Mir Hashem. Next time we will pick up with Siman Shin Zayin. Be well.